The morning air on Verdania 7 was thick with moisture and the sweet smell of unknown flowers. Hana Kim stood at the window of her small research lab, watching the fog roll across the massive forest that stretched beyond the Federation outpost. The trees were taller than any she had seen on Earth, their blue-green leaves shimmering in the alien sunlight. "Still staring at the Forbidden Zone?" asked Dr. Minji Choi as she entered the lab with 2 cups of coffee. Hana accepted the warm cup, gratefully. "It's beautiful. I don't understand why we can't study it." "Because people who go in there don't come back the same," Minji said, settling into her chair. "Or they don't come back at all." Hana frowned. As the outpost's chief xenobiologist, she had been excited to study the rich ecosystem of Verdania 7. But for 3 months the forest had been completely off-limits. All she could do was analyze samples that the automated drones brought back, and even those were limited to the forest's outer edges. The lab door opened with a soft hiss. Commander Tae-hyun Park entered, his face serious as always. Behind him walked Lieutenant Vex, a tall reptilian Vorthak, with scales that changed color when he was nervous. Right now they were a worried shade of dark purple. "Dr. Kim," Commander Park said, "we need to talk." Hana set down her coffee. "What happened?" "Another incident," the commander replied. "Last night, a patrol of Nexari soldiers went missing near the forest border. We found them this morning." "Found them?" Hana leaned forward. "Are they okay?" Lieutenant Vex made a clicking sound with his throat. "They were alive, but they couldn't remember anything, just like the others. They were found sitting in a circle staring at nothing. This was the 4th incident in 2 weeks. Each time, Federation soldiers from different species had the same experience. They would go missing near the forest, then be found hours later with no memory of what happened. The Nexari are crystalline beings," Commander Park continued. "They don't have normal brains like us. Whatever is in that forest can affect completely different types of minds." Hana stood up and walked to her computer. She pulled up the incident reports. "Has anyone considered that maybe the forest isn't dangerous? Maybe whatever is in there is trying to communicate?" "Communicate?" Lieutenant Vex's scales turned bright orange. "Dr. Kim, I've seen the claw marks on the trees. Whatever lives in there is huge and angry." "How do you know it's angry?" Hana asked. "Maybe it's just trying to leave messages." Commander Park shook his head. "Dr. Kim, I understand your scientific curiosity, but this isn't a research project. This is a safety issue. That forest is off limits for good reason." After they left, Hana sat alone in her lab, staring at the data on her screen. The bio readings from the forest were unlike anything she had ever seen. There was definitely something large living in there, something that gave off enormous heat signatures, but the readings didn't match any known predator species. The door chimed again. This time it was Sergeant Zith, a Zephyrian whose gaseous form was contained in a special suit. Her voice came through the suit's speakers with a slight electronic buzz. "Dr. Kim, you wanted to hear the soldiers' stories?" "Yes, please sit down." Sergeant Zith's form settled into the chair, her gas swirling slowly inside the transparent suit. "I've talked to soldiers from 5 different species. They all tell similar stories." "What kind of stories?" "They say the forest moves. Trees that are in one place when you look but somewhere else when you look again. Shadows that don't match what should be casting them. And the sound." Hana made notes on her tablet. "What sound?" "A deep rumbling. Like machinery, but alive. Some say it sounds like breathing. Others say it's like singing but too low for most species to hear properly." "Do any of them remember feeling threatened?" Sergeant Zith was quiet for a moment. "That's the strange part. Most say they felt watched, but not in a dangerous way. More like a curious way. Like something was trying to understand them." That afternoon, Hana reviewed all the data again. The forest covered nearly 40% of the continent. The ecosystem was incredibly healthy, with biodiversity readings that were off the charts. Whatever lived in the forest wasn't destroying it. If anything, it seemed to be protecting it. She pulled up the orbital scans. The heat signatures were massive, but they moved slowly and seemed to follow patterns. The creature, whatever it was, had regular routes through the forest. It wasn't randomly attacking or hunting. It was living its life just like any other animal. Her computer chimed with a new message. Dr. Donghyun Shin from the engineering department had sent her something. Interesting. Hana, his message read, I've been analyzing the soil samples from the forest border. You need to see this. She walked to his lab, which was filled with machines she didn't recognize. Donghyun was a quiet man who rarely spoke to anyone, but he was brilliant with technology. Look at this, he said, pointing to a screen showing microscopic images. The soil near the forest is incredibly rich. Plants grow 3 times faster there than anywhere else on the planet. What causes that? I'm not sure, but there are traces of organic compounds I've never seen before. Whatever is in that forest, it's not just living in the ecosystem. It's improving it. Hana stared at the data. Donghyun, what if we're wrong about the forest? What if whatever is in there isn't dangerous? What do you mean? Think about it. The soldiers aren't hurt. The ecosystem is thriving. The creature follows predictable patterns. What if it's not a monster? What if it's just an animal that's been misunderstood? Donghyun was quiet for a long moment. The Federation doesn't usually misunderstand things this badly. But they do when they're scared. Fear makes people see threats where there might not be any. That evening, Hana sat in her quarters, looking out at the forest. The trees glowed softly in the moonlight, their bioluminescent bark creating patterns that looked almost like writing. She had made her decision. Tomorrow she would break the rules. She would go into the forest and find out what was really happening. As a scientist, she couldn't let fear stop her from discovering the truth. She began preparing her equipment: basic camping gear, bioscanners, and recording devices. If she was going to make contact with whatever lived in the forest, she wanted to document everything. The forest was calling to her, and she was going to answer. The first light of dawn was just touching the tops of the forest when Hana slipped out of the outpost. She had left a message for Commander Park, telling him she would be back in 2 days. She knew he would be angry, but some things were more important than following orders. Her backpack was heavy with supplies: water, food, camping gear, and her most important tools, the bioscanners and recording equipment. If she was going to prove the forest wasn't dangerous, she needed evidence. The forest border was marked by a simple energy fence, more for keeping track of who went in and out than for protection. Hana found the maintenance gate and used her access code. The lock clicked open with a soft beep. She stepped into the forest and immediately felt the difference. The air was warmer here and filled with the sounds of life. Birds called from high in the trees, though she couldn't see them. Insects buzzed around flowers that glowed with soft light. The forest floor was covered with moss that felt soft under her boots. It's beautiful, she whispered to herself, then turned on her recorder. Day 1, Hour 0, entering the forest. Initial observations. Ecosystem appears healthy and active. No signs of danger. She walked deeper into the forest, following what seemed to be a natural path. The trees here were massive, their trunks so wide that 20 people holding hands couldn't reach around them. Their bark had patterns that looked almost like writing, glowing faintly with blue-green light. After an hour of walking, Hana stopped to check her scanners. She was getting readings for dozens of different life forms. Small animals, birds, even some larger creatures that seemed to be staying away from her path. Everything seemed normal for a healthy forest ecosystem. But then her scanner picked up something else. A heat signature so large that she thought the machine was broken. She tapped the screen and ran a diagnostic. The scanner was working fine. There really was something massive moving through the forest about 2 kilometers away. Interesting, she said into her recorder. Large heat signature detected, much larger than any known species in the Federation database, moving slowly, following what appears to be a regular path. She marked the location on her map and continued walking. The path wound between the giant trees, sometimes going up small hills, sometimes down into valleys where streams of crystal-clear water flowed. The sound of the water was peaceful, and Hana found herself relaxing despite the unknown dangers that might be around her. As the day went on, Strange things began to happen. She would look at a tree, then look away, and when she looked back, the tree seemed to be in a slightly different position. At first she thought she was imagining it, but then it happened again and again. Possible optical illusion, she recorded. Trees appear to shift position when not directly observed. Could be natural camouflage mechanism or effect of bioluminescent patterns creating false visual references. The shadows were strange too. Sometimes she would see her own shadow on the ground, but there would be other shadows nearby that didn't match anything around her. Large moving shadows that seemed to follow her progress through the forest. She wasn't scared, just curious. As a scientist, she had learned to observe without jumping to conclusions. There had to be a logical explanation for everything she was seeing. By afternoon, her scanners were picking up the large heat signature more frequently. Whatever was out there was getting closer, or maybe she was getting closer to it. She decided to find a good place to set up camp and wait. She found a small clearing beside a stream. The water was clean and cold, perfect for refilling her bottles. The ground was flat and covered with soft moss. She set up her small tent and arranged her equipment. As the sun began to set, the forest came alive with new sounds. The bioluminescent plants glowed brighter, creating patterns of light that moved through the trees like slow waves. It was more beautiful than anything she had ever seen. Then she heard it. A low sound so deep that she felt it in her chest more than heard it with her ears. It was rhythmic, like breathing, but much too loud to be coming from any normal animal. The sound seemed to come from all around her, echoing through the forest. Hana grabbed her recorder. Audio phenomenon detected. Low-frequency sound, possibly communication or natural biological function. Sound appears to be coming from the large heat signature detected earlier. The sound came again, longer this time. As Hana listened carefully, she realized it didn't sound threatening. It sounded almost lonely, like a call looking for an answer. She checked her bioscanner. The large heat signature was close now, less than 500 meters away. It was moving slowly, stopping frequently as if it was being careful not to make too much noise. The sound came a third time, and Hana felt a sudden understanding. She had heard something like this before when she was a child on Earth. Her family had owned a cat, and when it wanted attention, it would make a deep rumbling sound. Could it be purring? She whispered to herself. The idea seemed impossible. The heat signature was showing something the size of a building, but the sound, the rhythm, the way it seemed to be calling out, it all reminded her of a cat looking for companionship. Night fell, and the forest became a wonderland of glowing plants and soft sounds. Hana sat by her small camp stove eating dinner and listening to the forest. The large creature was still out there, still making its lonely calls. She made a decision. Tomorrow, she would try to find it. If it really was some kind of giant cat-like creature, then maybe the Federation soldiers had been wrong about it being dangerous. Maybe it was just lonely, looking for friends in a world where everyone was afraid of it. As she settled into her sleeping bag, Hana felt excited rather than scared. She was on the edge of a discovery that could change everything. The forest wasn't haunted by something evil. It was home to something that had been misunderstood. The last thing she heard before falling asleep was that deep, lonely purring sound, echoing through the trees like a lullaby. Hana woke up slowly, feeling like she was being watched. The morning sun was filtering through the trees, creating patterns of light and shadow on her tent. But there was something else, a presence that made the air feel different. She opened, her eyes fully, and froze. Two enormous golden eyes were looking at her through the tent's clear panel. Each eye was as big as a dinner plate, with a black pupil that seemed to hold intelligence and curiosity. The eyes blinked slowly, just like a cat's would. Hana's heart pounded, but she forced herself to stay calm. She was a scientist. This was the discovery she had come to make. Moving very slowly, she reached for her recorder. Day 2. Morning. She whispered. First direct contact established. Large creature observing campsite. Eyes suggest feline characteristics. No aggressive behavior detected. The eyes tilted slightly, as if the creature was curious about the sound of her voice. Then they disappeared. Hana quickly got dressed and crawled out of her tent. What she saw took her breath away. The creature was massive beyond anything she had imagined. It looked like a house cat, but scaled up to impossible size. From nose to tail it was at least 30 feet long. Its shoulders were 15 feet high. Its fur was a golden brown color, but as she watched, the color seemed to shift and change, blending with the shadows of the trees. The creature was sitting about 20 feet away, in the way cats do, with its tail wrapped around its front paws. Its head was tilted to one side, watching her with what looked like curiosity. "Hello," Hana said softly. The creature's ears perked up. They were large and pointed, covered with tufts of fur that moved in the morning breeze. Its whiskers were as long as Hana was tall. "You're beautiful," she continued, keeping her voice calm and gentle. "And you're not dangerous at all, are you?" The creature made a sound, a soft chuff like a regular cat would make when greeting someone friendly. The sound was so loud that Hana felt it in her bones, but it wasn't scary. It was welcoming. Slowly, carefully, the creature stretched forward and lowered its massive head until its nose was only a few feet from Hana. Its nostrils, each the size of her fist, flared as it sniffed her. Hana stood perfectly still, letting the creature investigate her. She could feel its warm breath on her face. It smelled like forest flowers and clean earth. After a moment, the creature pulled its head back and made another sound, a deep rolling purr that made the ground vibrate under Hana's feet. It was the same sound she had heard the night before, but now she was close enough to feel the happiness in it. "You've been lonely, haven't you?" she said, understanding flooding through her. "All those soldiers who came into your forest, you were just trying to say hello." The creature's eyes seemed to brighten. It moved closer, lowering its body until it was lying down. Even lying down, its head was still higher than Hana's. Hana realized this was a test. The creature was making itself less threatening, showing her that it meant no harm. It was being as gentle as something so large could be. "My name is Hana," she said, taking a small step forward. "What should I call you?" The creature made a soft sound, almost like ba, but deeper. It repeated the sound several times. "Beck?" Hana tried. "Is that your name?" The creature's purr grew louder, and its eyes closed in what looked like a smile. It seemed to like the same. Hana spent the morning observing Beck and recording everything. The creature was incredibly intelligent. When she showed him her equipment, he examined each piece carefully, understanding somehow that they were tools. When she took pictures, he posed for them, seeming to understand what a camera was for. Most amazingly, Beck seemed to understand that Hana was small and fragile compared to him. Every movement he made around her was careful and slow. When he walked, he placed his paws down gently so he wouldn't shake the ground too much. When he wanted to look at something she was holding, he lowered his head very slowly and kept his distance. Around noon, Hana's stomach growled loudly. Beck's ears perked up at the sound and he tilted his head in concern. "I'm just hungry," Hana explained. "I need to eat." Beck stood up and walked a short distance away. He came back carrying something in his mouth, a fruit that Hana recognized as safe to eat based on her database. He set it down gently in front of her. "Thank you," she said, touched by the gesture. The fruit was perfect, ripe and sweet. "You take care of this forest, don't you? You make sure everything grows healthy and strong." Beck purred in response, settling down near her while she ate. His presence felt protective and warm, like sitting next to a gentle giant who wanted nothing more than to make friends. As the day continued, Hana began to understand what had happened to the Federation soldiers. Beck had been trying to communicate with them, but his size and alien appearance had scared them. When they panicked, he had used some kind of mental ability to calm them down, putting them to sleep until they felt safe again. The moving trees were Beck using his color-changing fur to camouflage himself as he moved through the forest. The strange shadows were his actual shadow, cast by his massive form. All the mysterious things that had frightened the soldiers were just signs of a lonely, gentle creature trying to make contact. "They were wrong about you," Hannah said, sitting cross-legged near Beck's massive paw. "You're not a monster. You're just lonely." Beck made a soft, sad sound that confirmed her guess. Then he did something that surprised her. Very carefully, using just the tip of one massive claw, he began to draw in the dirt. The drawing was simple but clear, stick figures of various shapes and sizes, representing different species. At the center of the drawing was a large figure that was clearly meant to be Beck himself. But the large figure was separated from all the others by a wide space. "You want friends?" Hannah realized. "You want to be part of a community, but everyone is afraid of you because you're different." Beck's golden eyes looked directly into hers, and she saw intelligence there, and sadness, and hope. He was trying to tell her something important, something that went beyond just wanting companionship. As the sun began to set, Hannah made a decision that would change everything. She reached out her hand toward Bayek's massive head. "I'm not afraid of you," she said, "and I won't leave you alone anymore." Beck moved his head forward very slowly until Hannah's small hand was resting against his fur. His purr was so loud and deep that it seemed to fill the entire forest. For the first time in who knew how long, the gentle giant had found someone who understood him. The next morning, Hannah woke up to find Bayek sleeping nearby, curled up like a massive house cat. His fur rose and fell gently with each breath, and his purring was so quiet it was almost like a whisper. She had never felt safer in her life. She made breakfast while Beck slept, moving quietly so she wouldn't wake him. But when she opened her food packets, his nose twitched and his golden eyes opened slowly. "Good morning," she said softly. "Did you sleep well?" Beck stretched in the way all cats do, extending his front paws and arching his back. The movement was so familiar and yet so incredible to see at such a massive scale. He yawned, showing teeth as long as Hannah's forearm, then padded over to the stream for a drink. Watching him drink was like watching a small lake being drained. His pink tongue was the size of a dinner table, and the sound of him lapping water echoed through the forest. After breakfast, something amazing happened. Beck came and sat directly in front of Hannah, looking at her with intense concentration. Then she felt something strange in her mind, not words, but images and feelings. She saw flashes of scenes she didn't recognize, a planet covered in vast forests, filled with creatures like Bayek but in many different colors and sizes. They lived in harmony with the trees and plants, taking care of the ecosystem like gardeners. Their species was called the Phylixians, and they were ancient and wise. Then, the images turned dark. She saw the Phylixians getting sick one by one, a terrible disease that spread through their species like wildfire. She felt Beck's sadness as he watched his family and friends die, until he was the only one left. The images shifted again. She saw Beck traveling through space looking for a new home. He had found Verdania 7 and decided to stay, hoping to take care of its forest the way his people had taken care of their own world. When the images stopped, Hannah had tears in her eyes. "You've been alone for so long," she whispered. "Hundreds of years, taking care of this forest by yourself." Beck nuzzled her gently with his massive head, careful not to knock her over. His purr was soft and sad, but also grateful that someone finally understood his story. "The Federation soldiers," Hannah said, understanding more now. "You were trying to make friends with them." More images flowed into her mind. She saw Beck watching the Federation outpost from far away, curious about the new arrivals. He had tried to approach them carefully, but his size and appearance had terrified them. When they panicked and tried to attack him, he had used his mental abilities to put them gently to sleep, hoping they would calm down. But each time he tried, the same thing happened. Fear, panic, and then the soldiers would wake up with no memory of what had occurred. Beck had been trying to protect them from their own fear. "You never wanted to hurt anyone," Hannah realized. "You just wanted to not be alone anymore." Beck's eyes closed in what looked like relief. Finally, someone understood. They spent the day together, with Beck showing Hana around his forest. She saw how he took care of the ecosystem, encouraging certain plants to grow, moving fallen trees to create better water flow, even helping lost animals find their way home. He was like a gentle giant gardener, maintaining the balance of life in his domain. But late in the afternoon, Hana's radio crackled to life. "Dr. Kim, this is Commander Park. Respond immediately." Hana looked at Beck apologetically and activated her radio. "This is Dr. Kim. I'm fine, Commander. Dr. Kim, you need to return to base immediately. We're sending a rescue team." "I don't need a rescue team. I've made an important discovery." There was a pause. Then Commander Park's voice came back, sounding strained. "Dr. Kim, Colonel Jinwoo Lee has arrived from Federation Command. He's declaring the forest a hostile zone. They're planning to clear it with heavy weapons." Hana's blood went cold. "What? When?" "Tomorrow morning. You have 12 hours to get out of there." Hana looked at Beck, who was watching her with concern. Even though he couldn't understand the words, he could sense her distress. "Commander, I need more time. The creature in this forest isn't dangerous, it's intelligent and peaceful." "Dr. Kim, that's an order. Return to base now." The radio went silent. Hana stared at it, her mind racing. Tomorrow morning they would come with weapons and destroy everything. They would kill Beck, who had never hurt anyone. They would destroy the forest he had spent centuries caring for. She couldn't let that happen. Beck made a questioning sound, sensing her distress. More images flowed between them. He was showing her that he understood the danger. He had faced armed beings before, during his long life. He knew what weapons could do, but the images he shared surprised her. He wasn't planning to fight or run away. Instead, he was showing her scenes of himself protecting smaller creatures, putting himself between them and danger. Even if it meant his own death, he would try to protect the forest and anyone in it. "No," Hana said firmly. "I won't let them hurt you. We're going to show them the truth." She spent the evening making a plan. It was dangerous and probably wouldn't work, but it was the only chance they had. She would bring some of the more open-minded Federation personnel to meet Beck directly. If they could see his gentle nature for themselves, maybe they could convince Colonel Lee to call off the attack. She sent encrypted messages to Minji and Dong-hyun, asking them to meet her at the forest border early in the morning. She didn't explain everything, just that she needed their help with something important. As night fell, Beck curled up around Hana's campsite, his massive body forming a protective circle around her. She felt safe and warm, surrounded by his gentle presence, but she also felt the weight of responsibility. Tomorrow she would have to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its weapons or technology. It was its ability to understand and empathize with other forms of life even when they seemed strange or frightening. The fate of her new friend depended on it. Dawn came too quickly. Hana packed her equipment while Beck watched nervously, sensing that something important was about to happen. His fur kept changing colors, from golden brown to deep green to worried gray. "It's going to be okay," Hana told him, though she wasn't sure she believed it herself. "I'm going to bring some friends to meet you. They're going to understand, just like I did." Beck made a soft, questioning sound. Through their mental connection, he shared his worry. He had tried to make friends before and it had never worked. Why would this time be different? "Because they're human," Hana said, surprising herself with her confidence. "And humans are good at understanding things that seem scary at first." She walked to the forest border, where Minji and Dong-hyun were waiting with worried expressions. "Hana, what's going on?" Minji asked. "Your message was so strange." "I need you to trust me," Hana said, "both of you. I'm going to show you something amazing, but I need you to promise not to panic." Dong-hyun adjusted his glasses nervously. "What kind of something?" "The creature that lives in this forest. He's not dangerous. He's gentle and intelligent and very lonely. But Colonel Lee is planning to destroy the forest this morning, and I need your help to stop him." "You found the creature?" Minji's eyes widened. "Hana, that's incredibly dangerous." "No, it's not. That's what I need to show you." Hana started walking back into the forest. Please, just give me a chance to prove it. Reluctantly, her friends followed her. As they walked deeper into the forest, Hana explained everything she had learned about Bayek and his species. She told them about his loneliness, his gentleness, and his desire to make friends. A giant cat? Dongyun said, sounding skeptical. Hana, are you sure you weren't hallucinating? Some forest plants can cause... He stopped talking when they reached the clearing. Bayek was there, sitting quietly beside the stream. Even sitting, he was enormous. Both Minji and Dongyun froze in place. Oh my God, Minji whispered. Beck looked at the newcomers with curious golden eyes. His ears were perked forward in an interested expression, but he didn't move. He was being as non-threatening as possible. It's okay, Hana said to her friends. His name is Beck. He won't hurt you. Hana, Donghyun said in a tight voice. That thing could eat us without even trying. But he won't. Watch. Hana walked over to Bayek and placed her hand on his massive paw. Bayek, these are my friends. They're here to help. Bayek made a soft purring sound and slowly lowered his head toward Minji and Donghyun. His movements were careful and gentle, like a regular cat trying not to scare a small animal. Minji took a tiny step forward. As a medic, she was trained to stay calm in dangerous situations. But this was beyond anything she had ever experienced. He's beautiful, she said quietly. Beck's ears perked up at the kind words. He made a soft, chuffing sound that was clearly a greeting. Can he understand us? Dongyun asked, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. He's very intelligent, Hana said. More intelligent than any animal I've ever studied. And he's telepathic. He can share images and feelings. As if to demonstrate, Beck looked directly at Minji and Donghyun. Both of them gasped as gentle images flowed into their minds. Pictures of the forest, scenes of Beck caring for injured animals, memories of his long loneliness. He's sad, Minji said, tears forming in her eyes. He's been so sad for so long. Dongyun stared at Beck with new understanding. The missing soldiers. He was trying to help them, wasn't he? When they panicked, he put them to sleep to keep them from hurting themselves. Exactly, Hana said. He never wanted to hurt anyone, he just wanted friends. The sound of vehicles approaching interrupted their conversation. Through the trees, they could see Federation transports landing near the forest border. They're early, Hana said, her heart sinking. Colonel Jinwoo Lee's voice boomed through the forest via loudspeaker. Dr. Kim, you have 5 minutes to evacuate the area. We're beginning forest clearance operations. Beck's fur shifted to a worried gray color. He could sense the danger approaching, but instead of running or hiding, he moved to position himself between Hana and her friends and the approaching soldiers. He's protecting us, Minji realized. We have to stop them, Hana said. If they see Beck like this, they'll think he's attacking. But it was too late. Colonel Lee appeared at the edge of the clearing, followed by a squad of heavily armed soldiers. From multiple species, they stopped short when they saw Beck. Nobody move, Colonel Lee ordered, raising his weapon. That thing is exactly what we expected. Wait! Hana stepped forward. Colonel, please listen to me. This creature isn't dangerous. Dr. Kim, step away from the hostile immediately. He's not hostile. Hana moved to stand directly in front of Beck's massive head. His name is Beck, and he's intelligent and peaceful. Colonel Lee kept his weapon trained on Bayek. Dr. Kim, you've clearly been compromised. That creature has affected your mind. No, he hasn't. He's just lonely and wants to make friends. Hana looked around at all the soldiers. Look at him. Really, look. Does he seem like he's trying to attack anyone? Some of the soldiers were hesitating. Bayek was sitting perfectly still, making no aggressive moves despite being surrounded by weapons. His golden eyes were sad and resigned, as if he had accepted that this was how his long life would end. Then something unexpected happened. One of the soldiers, a young human private, tripped over a root and fell backward. He was going to hit his head on a sharp rock. Beck moved faster than anything that large should have been able to move. His massive paw swept out and caught the falling soldier. cushioning his landing and preventing injury. Then very gently, Beck set the soldier back on his feet. The entire clearing was silent. The soldier Beck had saved looked up at the massive creature towering over him. "Thank you," he said quietly. Beck made a soft purring sound and nuzzled the soldier very gently with his nose before stepping back. "He saved him," one of the other soldiers said. "It could have let him get hurt, but it saved him." Colonel Lee lowered his weapon slightly, confusion on his face. "I don't understand." "That's what I've been trying to tell you," Hana said. "Beck isn't a monster, he's a caretaker. He's been taking care of this forest for centuries, and he's been trying to take care of anyone who comes here." Minji stepped forward. "Colonel, I'm a trained medic. I can tell you that this creature shows no signs of aggression. His body language, his behavior, it's all consistent with a peaceful, intelligent being." Dongyun nodded. "The bio readings support Dr. Kim's findings. This creature maintains the forest ecosystem. It's been improving the environment, not destroying it." Colonel Lee looked around at his soldiers, many of whom were now lowering their weapons. The fear in their eyes was being replaced by wonder and curiosity. "Sir," the soldier Beck had saved said, "maybe we should listen to Dr. Kim." Colonel Lee was quiet for a long moment, studying Beck carefully. The massive creature sat patiently, under the scrutiny, occasionally making soft sounds that somehow conveyed intelligence and gentleness. Finally, the colonel made his decision. "Stand down," he ordered his troops. "We're not dealing with a hostile entity." Hana felt a wave of relief wash over her, but the real test came next. "Beck," she said, "would you like to meet everyone properly?" The massive creature's eyes brightened. Very slowly, very carefully, he approached the group of soldiers. He moved like a cat greeting new people, cautious but hopeful, ready to retreat if they seemed afraid. One by one, the soldiers reached out to touch his fur. Some were still nervous, but curiosity won over fear. Beck purred softly, happy to finally have the friends he had wanted for so long. Colonel Lee was the last to approach. He looked up at Beck's massive golden eyes and seemed to see the intelligence and gentleness there. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "We misunderstood." Beck lowered his head until it was level with the colonel's, and made a soft sound that somehow conveyed forgiveness. As the sun rose higher, the clearing became a place of wonder, instead of conflict. Soldiers from different species sat around Bayek, listening as Hana explained his story. Some were petting his massive paws, others were taking pictures, and all of them were amazed by the gentle giant who had been so misunderstood. "This changes everything," Colonel Lee said to Hana. "The Federation needs to know that intelligence can take forms we never expected." Hana smiled, watching as Bayek carefully picked up a small flower and offered it to Minji. "That's what makes us human," she said. "We don't just see things as they appear. We try to understand what they really are." Later that evening, as the Federation personnel set up a proper camp near the forest, Hana sat beside Bayek in their original clearing. The massive creature was purring contentedly, finally surrounded by the friends he had longed for. "You're not alone anymore," Hana said, scratching gently behind his enormous ears. "And you never will be again." Beck's purr grew louder, and he very carefully wrapped one massive paw around Hana in the closest thing to a hug his size would allow. It was the warmest, safest feeling she had ever experienced. The forest that had been called haunted was now known for what it really was, a sanctuary protected by the gentlest giant in the galaxy, who had finally found the family he had been searching for all along.